Alright, let's do this. So, you're new to WoW, or you've forgotten what happened in the 5 years since its expansion came out because Blizzard has never mentioned it again. Here's the almost complete history of Shadowlands. When we last left everyone's favorite misunderstood mass murderer, Sylvanas Windrunner, she had just set a tree on fire, started an epic war between the pro-genocide horde and the no-genocide horde, released a giant squid of a god complex, and blown up an evil hat. That last thing caused the afterlife to connect to regular life, which is bad, so everyone was about to kill themselves in order to beat up the Grim Reaper. Well, almost. Let's take a step back. If you aren't sure what's going on, take a few minutes to go watch the almost complete history of WoW, and I'll pick up where it left off at the end of Battle for Azeroth. All set? Let's do it. So after blowing up the evil hat, Sylvanas sent some of her Valkyr to start scooping up everyone she doesn't like and throwing them through the giant hole that she just made in the sky. Unfortunately, she doesn't like anyone. So today's lucky abductees are Anduin Wrynn, Bane Bloodhoof, Jaina Proudmoore, and Thrall. They've just won an all-expense-paid trip to WoW Hell, also known as the Maw. Never ones to miss an opportunity to look for nicer pants, the champions of Azeroth tell Bolvar they want to go to WoW Hell too. Bolvar uses the fragments of the evil hat to make a portal, and the champions go through, rescue everyone, and start shaking down the souls of the damned for lunch money and quest greens. While there, they also meet the jailer, a big grey dude who runs the Maw and loves torture almost as much as he hates shirts. He reveals to the champions of Azeroth that they're now stuck in WoW Hell because nothing escapes the Maw. The champions of Azeroth respond by immediately reactivating an ancient portal and escaping the Maw, but Bane, Jaina, Thrall, and Anduin get recaptured because of plot reasons. The portal takes everyone else to the Oribos, a big city where the souls of the dead are judged by a giant robot called the Arbiter and sent to whichever of the infinite afterlives suits them best. Unfortunately, a weird red soul showed up a few years ago and the Arbiter crashed when it tried to judge it because it was too big. I'm not sure that's how souls work, but we're playing fast and loose with the lore of this expansion, so just go with it. With nobody able to judge the souls, everyone has been getting sent directly to the Maw. This is bad, both because Azeroth's primary export for the last 2 years has been dead people, and because souls produce magic soul juice called anima that runs everything in the Shadowlands. Without this influx of magic soul juice, nobody in the afterlife can charge their phones. Plus, literally everybody who dies is getting sent to hell and tortured for all eternity, which isn't great. The champions of Azeroth, who are now called Maw Walkers, decide to start visiting the infinite afterlives to figure out who DDoSed the Arbiter. Unfortunately, due to development constraints, the number of afterlives gets lowered slightly, from infinite to 4. These 4 afterlives, called Covenants, work together to keep the Shadowlands running. There's Bastion, an idyllic land of peaceful streams and deadlifting owls where winged blue amnesiacs carry the souls of the dead to the Oribos for judgment. Maldraxxus, a big pit where the souls of the fiercest warriors divide into 5 houses and train to defend the Shadowlands by beating the crap out of each other. Ardenwald, a forest where the cast of Narnia grows reincarnation eggs for extra special druids who are too cool to die. And Revendreth, where legally distinct from vampires harvest anima from souls that committed heinous acts by torturing them until they feel bad enough to be sent back to the Oribos to be rejudged. Since Bastion is in charge of carrying souls to the afterlife, the Maw Walkers decide to go there first to ask if anyone remembers picking up a weird red soul that blew everything up. Nobody has any useful information, and the blue people are busy having a civil war over whether or not amnesia is cool. The anti-amnesia side turns out to be secretly working with the jailer, which takes a lot of the moral superiority out of their argument. Suddenly, Bastion is attacked by Maldraxxus. This runs somewhat counter to the Maldraxxi's whole defend the Shadowlands thing, and everyone in Bastion is still busy arguing about whether or not they should have to forget their moms, so the Maw Walkers volunteer to head over and find out what's going on. Upon entering Maldraxxus, the Maw Walkers are dropped into a mosh pit and pulled out by walking refrigerator Margrave Craxus. Craxus tells them that the former leader of Maldraxxus, the Primus, mysteriously vanished a few years ago and the 5 Maldraxxi houses started killing each other. Then, somebody kills Craxus. The Maw Walkers learned that Primus was so good at making swords that he made a sword with a secret message in it before he vanished. In the message, the Primus says the leaders of the Ever Afterlives need to be warned if the jailer defeated him and might escape the Maw. He also reveals that the jailer's real name is Zoval, but at this point it's too late because everyone's already calling him Nips McGee. The Maw Walkers head over to Ardenwald to relay the Primus' warning about Nips McGee to the Winter Queen, but she's too busy to talk to them because without magic soul juice, all the reincarnation eggs are dying. The Maw Walkers decide to fix all the problems in Ardenwald so that the Winter Queen has time for an audience, which seems like a really bad system for handling urgent messages from foreign dignitaries, but okay. They immediately uncover a plot to crack open all the reincarnation eggs to make a big anima omelet and accidentally start a war in the process, which causes enough chaos if the Winter Queen shows up. The Maw Walkers convey the Primus' warning, and the Winter Queen recommends that they go to Revendreth to talk to Sire Denafrius, since he's in charge of harvesting anima, and because it gets the Maw Walkers out of her afterlife. The Maw Walkers arrive in Revendreth and meet with Sire Denafrius, who tells them that the anima drought has forced him to blend up all the spare souls he was supposed to redeem into a big pot of soul juice so that he can carefully ration it out to the Ever Afterlives. This charitable sacrifice is only slightly undermined by the pre-expansion cinematic of Denafrius laughing evilly while drinking an overflowing goblet of secret stolen soul juice, as well as his presence in the raid guide. But luckily for him, the Maw Walkers never open their encounter journals, so we agree to help him kill the greedy rebel Prince Renafal who has been going around stealing Revendreth's meager stores of anima. Unfortunately for Denafrius, the Mallwalkers also have the conviction of damp paper bags. So, when Renafal tells him that Denafrius has actually been stealing all the anima and hiding it in his house, they immediately 180 and agree to join the rebels to help beat him up. Upon being confronted, Master Strategist Denafrius reveals his entire plan to work with the jailer to hoard all the anima and siphon it into the maw. Then he runs off and hides in his house with the stolen anima. Together, Renafal and the Mallwalkers kick down Denafrius' door and stick him in magic sword jail, so Renafal is now in charge of Revendreth and the anima drought is mostly resolved. Since the Mallwalkers are the only people who can freely enter and exit the maw, they decide to jump back down and start breaking people out. They've actually been doing this the whole time, but for the sake of narrative clarity, I bundled it all here. They break into Torghast, Nips McGee's super evil torture tower in the heart of the maw, and rescue Jaina, Thrall, and Bane. They can't save Anduin because he's in Supermax, so they just hang out in a corner and spy on his conversations with Sylvanas. They also meet a mysterious prisoner with no memory of his past called the Rune Carver who's been forced to make weapons for Nips McGee because he's really good at making swords. Let's take a quick moment so you can all say it with me. The Mallwalkers have no idea who this guy is because they spend most of their free time drinking lead paint, but they go around and start collecting his memories anyway because he promised to make them cool pants. As this mysterious prisoner, who definitely isn't the Primus, begins to recover his memories, he remembers being forced to make the evil hat that Sylvanas broke at the start of this expansion, and its accompanying sword, which was previously used to steal half of Sylvanas' soul. That bit's gonna be important later. Keen viewers may remember, but in the almost complete history of WoW, I said Kil'jaeden made the evil hat. Apparently, this was wrong, because it turns out the Dreadlords, who were supposedly working for Kil'jaeden and the Legion, were actually super secret triple agents that were working for Denafrius and the Jailer this whole time. How secret, you ask? So secret that not even the writers knew about it until this expansion, but this totally isn't a retcon because Nips McGee has been pulling the strings since Warcraft 3, so shut up. Also, it turns out Nips McGee was the original Arbiter, but he was fired after he got so upset that souls in the afterlife were being treated unfairly that he decided the only solution was to reset the entire universe so that everyone would be inescapably bound to his will. You know, for their own good. He did this by trying to steal 5 magic keys called sigils that are kept in the Oribos in each of the 4 primary afterlives, which would have allowed him to open a portal to a mysterious engine where the universe was originally created, called the Sepulchre of the First Ones. Luckily, the 4 Covenants banded together to stop him, banished him to the Maw, and built a fancy new robot arbiter that was significantly less likely to try to wipe out the entirety of existence. They also hid their sigils to make sure that nobody could ever reach the Sepulchre, so there shouldn't be anything to worry about. The Mallwalkers head back to Oribos and learn that Nips McGee has turned Anduin into an evil little marionette and used him to steal the sigil of Bastion. Then Sylvanas kills a lot of fairies by not believing in them, and by shooting them with arrows, and steals the sigil of Ardenwald. It turns out Denafrius already gave Nips McGee the sigil of Revendreth, so we're off to a pretty bad start. The Primus hid the sigil of Maldraxxus before he went missing, so the Mallwalkers hunt it down before Nips McGee can find it. They notice the sigil has been wrapped in one of the Rune Carver's memories, so they decide to take it to him. In Torghast, the heart of the jailer's base of operations. After a quick stop to chug another bucket of lead paint, the Mallwalkers reach Torghast and give the sigil of Maldraxxus to the Rune Carver. As the sigil fuses with the Rune Carver, his memories flood back to him and he realizes he's the Primus. I'll pause for a moment so you can absorb the shock of this twist. It turns out that the Primus hid his sigil and erased his own memories before Nips McGee captured him so that he couldn't give up its location and the jailer would never be able to reach the Sepulchre, which was just rendered pointless thanks to our heroics, but A for effort, Primus. The Primus immediately asks the Mallwalkers why they possibly thought that any of this was a good idea. The Mallwalkers, wiping paint off their mouths, say that the magic floating exclamation marks told them they would get more pants. The Primus doesn't have time to decipher the horrifying implications of this statement because Nips McGee shows up and takes the sigil that has just been helpfully dropped in the middle of his living room. Then, he lets the Mallwalker and the Primus leave because the writers remembered that if the player character gets killed, they stop making money. At this point, the newly freed Primus has so little confidence in the Mallwalkers that he suggests everyone just assume they're going to fail to protect the Arbiter's sigil and start forging a new set of sigils, which is apparently something that they can just do, so that they can chase after Nips McGee when he gets the last one. The Mallwalkers proceed to forge replacement sigils of Revendreth and Maldraxxus. The Blue Amnesiacs decide they can have a little memory, as a treat, and get a sigil for all the progress they're making in therapy. The Moon Goddess Elune shows up and tells Tyrande that she let the Night Elves get burned alive because she saw that Ardenwald needed anima and decided to let an entire race of people get turned into fertilizer so that the Winter Queen would have enough soul juice for her reincarnation eggs. When Elune learns she accidentally sent all the Night Elves to WoW Hell instead, she feels so bad that she cries a new sigil into existence. And Tyrande learns a valuable lesson about how it's wrong to get mad when your people are burned alive. So that's cool. But enough of that. The Covenants are back up to 4 sigils, so everyone teams up to kick in Nips McGee's front door, yet again, and beat him up before he can take the Arbiter's sigil. The Mallwalkers battle to the top of Torghast and chase Sylvanas to the Arbiter's platform on the Oribos, but the jailer successfully gets the last Infinity Stone anyway, tragically putting on a shirt in the process, and uses his newfound power to bind everyone on the platform to his will. Sylvanas is shocked that the guy she watched use domination magic and the Sanctum of Domination to dominate the free will of Anduin is planning to remove people's free will, and defiantly announces that she will never serve him, which would carry a lot more weight if it wasn't the only thing she's been doing since Cataclysm, but okay. Then she fires an arrow at him, which, shockingly, doesn't do much. Nicholas McGee proceeds to free all the Maw Walkers he just mind-controlled, gives Sylvanas, who has intricate knowledge of his plan and has just declared her intent to stop him, the good half of her soul back, lets everyone live, opens a portal to the Sepulchre, refuses to elaborate further, takes Anduin, and leaves. The Covenants can't follow the jailer until they have the 5th sigil, so they use the power of friendship to immediately manifest a new one into existence and use it to open their own portal to the Sepulchre. Sylvanas wakes up after her newly repaired soul finishes processing the sheer quantity of war crimes she committed and agrees to stand trial for them once the jailer has been defeated. With the help of Sylvanas, the Maw Walkers free Anduin from the jailer's control, but they need to retreat and figure out how to resist the jailer's domination magic before they can fight him head-on. They ultimately do this by reforging the fragments of the evil hat into a generic quest green called the Crown of Wills that has the power to neutralize domination magic because a lot of stubborn people were in the room when it got made. The Maw Walkers also build a fancy new robo-arbiter so that everyone who dies will finally stop being sent to WoW Hell, but the dreadlords infiltrate the project and infuse the new arbiter of the world soul of the planet Argus, who was killed by the champions of Azeroth a few expansions ago and who became the weird red soul that ultimately crashed the last arbiter. Good job, us! The dreadlords are defeated and the plot fails, but the robo-arbiter gets destroyed in the process, so a wingless blue dude named Pelagos volunteers to serve as arbiter instead and dons the Crown of Wills, which makes him get really big and lose his feet, but at least everyone stops getting sent to hell. Also, the Maw Walkers learn that the 4 Covenant leaders and the jailer are actually robots that were designed by the first ones to oversee the Shadowlands. So that's cool and doesn't raise any unanswered questions whatsoever. With the power of friendship, a capacity for incredible violence, and the single ugliest hat you have ever seen, the Maw Walkers storm back into the Sepulchre and beat up Nicholas McGee before he can bring the engine of creation back online and reset the universe. Nips McGee takes off his shirt one last time, tells everyone that they're the real villains because he only wanted to inescapably bind all of existence to his will to protect them from an even bigger evil, then turns back into a robot and dies. The universe is saved, and everyone decides to celebrate by holding a war crimes tribunal. Today's special defendant is resident war crimes expert, Sylvanas Windrunner. Pelagos uses his first act as arbiter to delegate the responsibility of sentencing to somebody else, namely Tyrande, who sentences Sylvanas to community service in the form of jumping back down into WoW Hell and rescuing every single person that's ever been banished to the Maw. Then she banishes her pet owl to the Maw for moral support. Anduin sees everyone getting banished to the Maw and feels left out, so he banishes himself to the Maw. Pelagos puts his non-existent foot down and says that nobody is ever allowed to be banished to the Maw again. Then he opens a portal to Azeroth, thanks everyone for saving the universe, and tells us to get the fuck out. And that's the history of Shadowlands. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, consider checking out the almost complete history of World of Warcraft. The animation is worse, but the lore is better. And if you really liked the video, consider subscribing. That way, you'll be notified when I talk about Dragonflight in 2030. The champions of Azeroth respond by immediately reactivating an ancient portal and escaping the Maw. Escaping the Maw. Yes, escaping the Maw.